Buenas tardes. I'm here to talk to you about the Coneto gold mining camp, but when Douglas asked me to speak at this conference, he asked me whether I had a topic or a subject that I'd like to bring up, and this ties in with a lot of the talks that have been given before this session. This is the last technical presentation before Douglas makes his final comments, and I really appreciate his team for inviting me here at the last minute to fill in for one of the speakers. One topic that I'd like to touch on, several companies have talked about it, is the fit between a mining project, an exploration or a resource or a mining project that is a good project, and then you have a company that is a good company, maybe technically sound, it may be in a position where they have certain corporate needs, but the two, based on timing, may not always fit. And that's something that I'd like you to all think about for your projects. Is your project in the right company, given the current trends in the economic industry, and what you think is the objective? It's not always about becoming the greatest and biggest project. It's about having an economically viable or realistic project. And so an example of different changes that have happened, you may have seen that Coeur Mining have sold their project at La Preciosa to Avino Gold and Silver Mines. Avino was across the valley and they had a mill already there. Coeur would have had to build a mill. So that's an example of synergies that happen. I knew that project very well because I was the geologist of record for the discovery of La Preciosa in Mexico. Another example would be SSR Mining, the former Silver Standard mines. That company had La Piteria in Durango State as well. And La Piteria is now part of Endeavor Silver. So Endeavor Silver might be a better fit for the time. So I'm going to be staying in Durango. We're in the Mexican silver trend in the central part of Durango. And I'll make a few forward-looking statements. And the forward-looking statements is about what we would like to see for the Coneto project, which is in the heart of the Mexican silver trend. Within Orex, we currently have 3 projects. This presentation will focus on the Coneto project. You can see that our projects here are with Conetos with Fresnillo. Fresnillo is the world's largest silver mining company. Really good people. I've got lots of friends at Fresnillo, and I've had a very good working relationship with them. Is this project right for the portfolio of the world's largest silver mining company? I'm saying that it's probably better suited to be with a mid-size company. But that's something that I'd like you to think about as I make this presentation. The Sandro project is with Pan American Silver as our joint venture partner. Pan American Silver is the world's second largest silver mining company. So maybe I need to get to know some of the other silver mining companies as well to be able to work on projects with them. But these are both very good joint venture partners. I also have one in Canada that we'll be working on. So the Coneto Gold-Silver Project, heart of the Mexican silver trend, and a beautiful little community there. The Coneto de Comonfort is the name of the town. You drive into that town. And where I'm standing when I take this picture is right in the central part of the camp and looking towards La Bufa. La Bufa being the steeper hill that you see on the horizon. Some of the veins I'm standing on when I took that photograph. So there are veins up at La Bufa. La Bufa has Santo Nino, it has El Release, it has Elizabeth. Behind me, from where I'm taking this picture, are a whole other series of veins that was Promontorio, Descubridora, there's Durazno, there's Impulsora. So these are to give you a sense that we're talking about the whole mining camp in this case. So Coneto is located in the heart of Durango. Durango is often referred to as El Corazón de Mexico. It's sort of heart-shaped, but it has a little handle off to one side. So it's right up there in north central part of Mexico. That trend has some of the largest silver mining deposits in the world that go through. If you're down in Zacatecas, Defiance Silver, they spoke earlier this week. That was Douglas Cavey talked about Defiance Silver, and Jen talked about the geology of it. La Pitarrilla is a huge system. La Preciosa is a big silver system there. Fresnillo, of course, is the big deposit, and it has mag silver right adjacent to them with their joint venture. That trend goes right up and heads up north, west, southeast. Where Coneto is right near El Castillo. You drive by and you can see the open pits of El Castillo as you're going up there. El Castillo is a lower grade but open pit gold deposit that's there. That's an operating mine that we pass by on the way to Coneto. There's one part of Coneto which has similarities to El Castillo, but the majority of Coneto is epithermal low sulfidation veins. So with gold, silver towards the top part, gold, silver, and going into base metals, and as you get deeper into more base metals. So that gives you a sense of where we're sitting. La Preciosa is a red dot on there because it was my Niña, one of my discoveries here for our team. And discoveries, remember, are always a team effort. I just got to be on stage for the discovery of that one. So, epithermal silver gold project, central Durango in the Mexican silver trend. It's a good land position in the camp. It's about 95% of the known veins. There are about 45 to 50 known veins on the property. Majority of them are in this block, and it's in a joint venture with Fresnillo. Fresnillo has earned their 55%. So they're at that stage where they've made that investment in the joint venture. Orex, as the junior mining company, still has 45%. We were the ones who assembled the land package and brought in Fresnillo as a partner. Fresnillo sees value in this project. They see it as a good project, but is it a fit for the world's largest silver mining company? I would put to you that it probably is not a very good fit because their threshold is really 250 to 300 million ounces of silver is what it takes to move the needle for them as a corporation. So what I'm doing now is negotiating with Fresnillo as the possibility of Fresnillo moving out of this project and bringing in a company that would be at the right fit for this kind of a project. So, like many Mexican camps, it's had episodic production and exploration. Some of the Riel de Coneto is the first operation, so it has a long history, but most of it was down to the water table. So most of the old operations, small mines, were on smaller blocks of land. Assembling them all together was important, and to study them as a unit. So intermittent production shut down like everything else at the Mexican Revolution time. There was some recent gold production at Sauce and Palma veins on the project. I think that those need to be reevaluated as well, and to examine those at depth. From 1990 to 2009, there were several companies, no consolidation, and there was minor fluorite production in the Durazno and Impulsora veins on the property. Fluorite occurs generally at a lower temperature. It was higher up on the system. The fluorite that they were looking at had too much sulfide, so it was not a good product. Of course, we were looking for the sulfides, and that because the sulfides were, you got your argentite, and you had silver and gold in the system, and there was probably too much silver in their fluorite that they were producing. So that was an issue. 2009 is when I started to put this project together with our team at Orex Minerals. So moving from 2009, all about timing, that's something that Doug Cavey was talking about earlier, was the financial downturn, the banking crisis worldwide. was hitting us right at the time when you're trying to put a project together. And I'd submit to you today that we're also looking at timing issues, that timing is an important part of it, that with changes in the mining legislation in Mexico is another timing issue. 2009 to 14, took over 10,000 samples of rock, lithogeochemistry, and soil geochemistry. Moved into a drilling program for Orex just as Orex, not before, it was before the joint venture was formed. Drilled a little over 5,000 meters in 21 holes, and then started the negotiation and brought in phases 2 to 5 were drilling by the joint venture company. So EDMC, Exploraciones Desarrollo Minera Coneto. And so 83 more holes. So in total, that's a little over 38,000 meters of drilling. And in total, there's about 106 drill holes. Fresnillo then started reviewing their exploration strategies worldwide, and we're moving into some other countries as well. Which for a junior company, you're saying, well, you know, we love what you're doing at Fresnillo, but is this helping us at that time? So 2020, the worldwide COVID pandemic starts restricting activities, and that's when they asked me to take over the presidency of this company. You know, maybe, you know, as a technical person, as a geologist, yeah, great time to be taking over a project when it's COVID hitting the world for a pandemic. So 2021 started the metallurgical test work and with SGS Mineral Services here in Mexico, and in late 2021 put out the very first time a published resource with an independent group examining it, so it's an inferred resource on this property. So it's a window of the lower volcanic succession, so about 17 kilometers northwest to southeast, about 4 kilometers wide, and it's surrounded by upper volcanic. So the rhyolites of the upper volcanic are on the hillsides around it. You drive down and you can put your hand right on the contact of the lower volcanic and upper volcanic on a switchback of the road heading into the village. So beautiful location. It's primarily, the greens are your andesites, so there's a core of a more magnetiferous andesite in the central part, and then there's andesite that's a bit more altered around that, and there's altered rhyolites of the basal unit of that upper volcanics. That's what we're looking at here. If you think of it from the geologists in the group, think of it like a right lateral, a Riedel shear zone. So you've got veins that are northwest, southeast, and then you have your crossing veins from within that shear that would be north-south oriented. So there'll be veins that are like Loma Verde is a north-south vein, the Palma is north-south vein, but many of the other ones are northwest-southeast. So it fits with the previous talk that was given, which was a lot on structure. So your structural geology plays a part in this kind of account. So here's one of the mine portals that had the fluorite mining operation. There's a couple of levels that were in the Mina El Durazno, the Peach. So a low sulfidation, the high Sierras, upper volcanics. The main host here in the lower volcanics is exposed except for where there's the farming areas. So getting through a little bit of caliche and sampling, that's why we did a lot of soil samples, but there's certainly more room to be done on that part. Now, past production was in the upper levels of some of these veins. We've drilled some of them and we realized there may be some telescoping in the veins, and we're hitting more than 300 meters below surface, and we're still hitting the economic gold and silver values with the increasing base metals. So I think it's the upper levels of a preserved system that's in this site. So here are a couple of the veins and some underground workings. The underground working on the right-hand side is the Impulsora vein. And that one has silver and gold, and that's part of the current resource because we drilled down into ore chutes on that. And Colomanito is on the left-hand side here, and Calaveras Coneto area, and the Impulsora. So there's your Calaveras vein. The one phase of the mineralizing system had very resistant quartz, the less mineralized. So that was the phase number 2 in a series of 6 different phases of mineralization. And sometimes that was left in the past, but it carries some gold and silver, not as high as the second phase or the third phase, which was adjacent to it, and that's why adjacent to it is where the trench is. But these still, you can see in the background, there are these hillsides, and that's where a lot of the mineralization appears with these resistant crustons, if you will. There's also an alteration in the background where the vegetation has died off. That's an intense alteration zone as you're going between Promontorio and Impulsora. So sometimes you get these breccias as well. So you get a breccia textures with your third phase of mineralization was your argentite mineralization in here with some galena starting to appear. So 106 drill holes, 38,613 meters. We've drilled 12 targets. But there are more targets to be tested, and there are certain blocks that have been downdropped relative to other blocks. And so interpreting those structures is something that, that can be carried on further. This is what the material looks like in the upper portion of the deposit. You've got oxide mineralization. You've got a few of the grades there. You can see that bottom sample. It's got 6.34 grams of gold and 142 grams of silver. We think of this project as a gold-silver project, but we haven't not incorporated the base metal portions because that is something that you start hitting at greater depth. This would be in the top, say, 70 to 100 meters where you get some oxidation and some transition material. This, a lot of geologists will look at this and they'll smile at it because this is a deeper hole that was on the, this particular one was on Santo Niño, and it shows there are textures of boiling. You've got these discrete areas where you're starting to get the transition going into copper, lead, and zinc values in this sample. You can see the chalcopyrite. You can see as the goldy colored looking material. You can see the gray galena, and some of that softer gray is your argentite. The brownish color is a brownish sphalerite, so it's not too high in iron content for the sphalerite, but you've got a little bit of pore space. This is the boiling zone, and that sample itself comes from 300 meters below surface. So that's where I think we are in that part of the project. So here are a few examples of some select diamond drilling: Impulsora, Loma Verde, La Bufa, Santo Niño, Durazno. Durazno Alto, the Durazno A, I like to point out there because it did not have as much silver in it, but had some of the highest gold values. It's not in the resource estimate because there aren't very many holes that have been tested, the Durazno Alto. And you can see that Santo Niño downhole, that's 395 meters or almost 400 meters down the drill hole. We're hitting the true thickness of 2.7 meters of 840 grams of silver equivalent. So, what's happening below that, what's happening adjacent to that, there's more work to be done there. The Durazno vein itself is one of the thicker veins. And that vein itself, you can walk in near surface and it's about 11 meters thick. Here, its true thickness was about 7 meters. And oddly enough, that particular spot was mainly gold. So depending on where you are and on the property, you can get some interesting gold-silver ratios on these various veins. Here we're at Impulsora Sur, and it splits off, and there are 2 veins, and the farmers take these pieces of quartz and they build fences out of them to allocate certain areas for their animals, restricting them. And so you can walk along these fences of quartz veins and see mineralization and textures as well. But these are two of the veins in the Impulsora Sur area as parallel structures. So, now getting to metallurgical testing, it's always important to know that you can get the silver and gold out of the rock. And so that was when we did some metallurgical testing. Those that are very familiar with this sort of thing will notice on the top one is gold, and that one of the lines doesn't seem to match the other ones very well. That is promontorio. And promontorio is the one that looks more like the gold as lower grade, a series of altered and stockworks, as opposed to a discrete vein structures. So the 5 major zones on the property in this testing averaged over 93% for gold, up to 98%. When you're looking at the silver, the lower chart there, silver after 96 hours still had a positive slope, so silver was still being digested after 96 hours, but those silver values were up into the 80% recovery on silver, and you're over 90% recovery on the gold with standard cyanide leach dissolution. So if you're looking at from a metallurgical viewpoint, it is a classic sulfide type situation, with promontorio being the only exception that would be a little bit different on that. So within the modeling that Fresnillo's team did for the joint venture, you can see that most of these veins are heading in a northwest-southeast direction, and gives you a sense for the scale that's happening here, because those squares are 1 kilometer. So you've got Impulsora, and the northern part of Impulsora is actually Durazno, and there should be a fault drop as you move into the Durazno portion. Promontorio is very close to Impulsora. In between there's an intermedio vein, which has some hits on it, but have not been followed up. South of Descubridora, there's Indio, and you can see one of the things that based on the drilling pattern, they only modeled the ones that we had enough drill holes in. What you don't see are the ones that were in the historic mines, like the Sose and the Palma, that are right in the center part of the camp. But you can see that Loma Verde is almost a north-south orientation rather than a northwest-southeast orientation. So the first resource estimate is, they were quoting it in gold equivalent. Here is 538,000 ounces, so over the 500,000 ounces gold equivalent. If you want that in silver equivalent, that would be roughly 40 million ounces of silver equivalent. So 286,000 ounces of gold, 19 million ounces of silver. So it's about a 40 million ounces of silver equivalent. Is that enough to really make a difference for a company like Fresnillo? I put to you that it is not. If their threshold is going to be 300 million ounces, can I visualize doubling this? Yeah, I can see doubling that. That gets you to 80 million ounces. You know, you can see the challenges for a junior mining company, depending on the timing. It may be that it's time to convince them that a different partner, maybe somebody in this room, could be the right partners for this kind of a project. But this gives you an idea of these vertical structures that are here, of what kinds of tonnage and grades so far that we have on the project. So this is Durazno right at surface, so it's about 11 meters wide in this spot, and you can see on the right-hand side, upper right, that it's dipping at about 78 degrees. So that's the direction that it's dropping or dipping down, and we can drill down into that and hit the Durazno structure. About 15 meters above Durazno is the Durazno Alto, which has not been followed up. So there are many targets that are left over. So As well as the work that we're doing, it's very important to have a community activity. And community activity is to have the local communities engaged, and you provide work in the local community, but we also help the ranchers. Sometimes their presas, their dams, need some work, and so you help them reestablish their dams after a major rainy season where they might have had some damage on it. In this case, we're also planting trees in the local schoolyard. We do not actually do the planting of trees. I'm standing in the picture there. If a child takes responsibility for the tree, where the older child digs the hole and the younger child plants the tree, they will take care of those trees in their schoolyard. And that getting the local community involved is very key, and it's part of our long-term, what in the news they often refer to it as ESG, it's environmental, social, and governance habits. But we've been doing that for decades, that we want our local community to benefit. When the changes to the mining laws in Mexico are there, those mining laws also talk about the benefits for the local community. So there we are, we've got a resource. Fresnillo is our partner, but they are willing to talk if another company is interested. And so we've gotten to that stage. So anyway, I welcome any further comments, and I've just hit the timing. I see that Douglas has his hook out ready to go, and I really appreciate the chance to step in here at the last minute because there were a couple of cancellations. And I welcome and thank the team, and I thank all of you for listening to me today. Douglas, on to you.